but how about holding all the vaccine companies that are going to make, $20 billion hold harmless? And yet they haven't even settled the suits from 1976 totally. See, Alex, this is the thing that is so, they've gotten so bold. And by the way, when I get messages from those kind of guys, they'll say something like, "You're wasting your breath, Quayle. You can't get them. They're already too dumb to care." And I said, well, they may be too dumb to care, but I care. And that's what really makes me so furious is that here you have our own homegrown military guys being experimented on lab rats. Alex, the biggest upheaval in the country should have taken place when all veterans were declared terrorists. Broaden the definition of terrorism. You and I have talked about this. Boy, sweep them up in all one swell swoop. So when people hear of, the systematic termination, execution, or operations against, quote, a group of veterans, these are your fathers, ladies and gentlemen. These are your grandfathers. These are men who fought and died and women who fought and died and still fight and die. They're still fighting and dying without any acknowledgement.
Well, that's the globalists proving that they are the outside usurper terrorists, not just the $23.7 trillion they've stolen or all the looting. They're taking us over like they do third world countries. They control the central government. They create these false debts. They take over.
Absolutely.
But by declaring the veterans and gun owners terrorists, they prove who they are. Go ahead.
Well, I think that's the thing that most people can't grasp. We are no longer what we used to be. We are absolutely a third world country. A man was in my office 2 weeks ago, Alex, plus or minus a day or two, and he basically had the absolute proof that the Amero is a real currency. And the thing is
well, no, wait a minute. It's now been announced by the Russian president. Yep. It's now been announced worldwide. They're moving to a world currency. I have clips of Geithner saying it.
Right. But see, the Amero is basically even trading in Eastern European countries right now. In order to facilitate the Chinese to keep them happy, we had to give them 12.
Yeah, the Amero is just the name of a SDR in our area of the world. The banks are now moving to world digital money. That's why they're going to bypass the world currency and go right to thumbprints and face scans. Steve, I want to go to calls.
Okay.
But since you mentioned chemtrails, we went out to California. This is from California Skywatch. They got this from the FAA. These are maps, and we have all the logs and lists. We have thousands of pages of documents from the FAA. They went to chemtrail symposiums. The aerosol testing is what the government calls it. They admit they're terraforming. The White House science czar now admits they're doing it. It puts a good spin on it. Here are the flights that just go in loops, and these yellow are the government test flights. These are not planes going out and turning around. They go in circles and in ovals, and they're all over. And most of the trees are dying right here on the coast. The people are all getting sick. But these are FAA maps of the chemtrailing. And then they went and checked the flights. These are University and Department of Energy flights, admittedly doing spraying and weather modification. So the point is, we're now getting the actual documents. This is real. And I know you've covered that. I know that you have seen that. But what is it like to see Holdren? Because you're the guy that wrote a book years ago about how weather warfare went with the eugenics, how they would use it to starve the third world. The State Department Memorandum 200 saying they would starve people. Secretary of Defense Cohen, Army Times, April 28th, 1997, said we'll use weather weapons. We know they're doing it here for droughts and floods. And then he talks about it in Ecoscience using it as a weapon. And now you can Google, folks, White House science czar, Geoengineer Planet. In fact, Google that, folks. I want people to see that on screen at prisonplanet.tv as we simulcast on the radio. Talk about the eugenics agenda and how it ties into weather weapons.
Well, first of all, weather weapons, and it's not just weather, it's also geophysical weapons. They can generate earthquakes. They can generate volcanoes. Interesting, isn't it, how all the volcanoes are coming active? And by the way, I want all of your listeners...
He said that. Yep. Secretary of Defense said that.
Absolutely, but keep everyone's eyes on ANAK, A-N-A-K, Krakatau in, Indonesia. That's the big one that's getting ready to go off. But here, listen, how about this, Alex? Here's one of our mutual listeners, Steve. In Northeast Ohio, all the nut trees, the oaks, the hickories, and others have all dropped their nuts. This means mass starvation for the animals, which equates to less animal foods available for those who bug out. That
means they dropped them before they developed.
You got it. And what's happening with the by controlling the food, you control the people. What people don't understand is when mad cow and what's called ungulate fever and chronic wasting disease in the deer and elk populations of the West and everything, that was all genetically engineered. They were black ops helicopters. Remember all the crap you and I used to get, Alex? Oh, there are no black helicopters. You guys are all conspiracy theorists, you know? And then, interestingly enough, up in our country, Montana/Wyoming, you know, mad cow and chronic wasting disease broke out in the deer and elk population, and also in Wisconsin. See, what people don't understand is these individuals absolutely want to depopulate the earth, bring it to a sustainable population of 500 million, and you better pray you're one of them, or else you better be against them, because that means roughly, Alex, 1/12 of the world's population gets to survive. How do you initiate that? Even in a nuclear war, my specialty before getting on talk radio was Cold War weapons, nuclear proliferation, and the whole thing, everything associated with World War III from an atomic standpoint. But the point is that even in a nuclear war, you cannot get the kill ratio that you can get with bioweapons, especially if the dispersion of those bioweapons is strategically placed.
And again, you've made the key point. They need this flu crisis to get their carbon tax through, their socialized health care through to carry out the eugenics, to get their gun grabbing through, to get their entire smokescreen so they can pose as saviors. If we expose them, though, I believe they may back off on this plan. Obama's approval is dropping even faster than Biden said it would. Remember, he said 6-9 months into my administration, we're going to be very unpopular. They knew what they were going to be doing, and he didn't know he was being recorded with those hires up. Let's take a call. Let's talk to Mark in Tennessee. Mark, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Alex, good to talk with you and Steve. I'm a long-time listener, over a decade. Yeah, I 100% agree that the biological avenue is the way they're going to take for several reasons. First and foremost, if you think about it, one of the best ways to get neighbors to snitch on neighbors, to turn against neighbors, is most of these gap-jawed, round-bellied, Kool-Aid gulping sheep zombies. All they're going to know is that I don't want him giving my family the flu.
Yeah, they're too stupid to know that if they've had the shot and it supposedly works, then your neighbor can't give it to you. That bogus term. In fact, you were using it earlier about the common good, or what's that term they use to try to forcibly inject everybody? Steve?
I'm sorry, Alex. You just missed me. I'm just...
Public welfare.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, public... Oh, I mean, you tell these idiots, hey, if you've had the bioweapon shot, you supposedly should be safe. But the truth is, it's usually the people getting the shots that spread it.
Right, and I call those people infectons, okay? And INFECTONS. In other words, people who are intentionally infected so that they become the vectors, whether they travel. Listen, all you'd have to do is hit the major airports, vaccination. Guess what's happening, Alex? They're setting up vaccination ports in the airport. You don't get your vaccine, you don't get on the airplane.
Exactly as we predicted. Now they're saying, like, have a bracelet to get in a store. They lock down schools. If one kid gets sick, it isn't even the flu. It's the new medicalized tyranny. Great points, Mark. Let's talk to Andy in Florida. Andy, you're on the air.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
My theory is that there's too much similarities and motive here between the economic crisis and the swine flu. I think that our economy and banking system basically completely collapsed last fall. And without the Band-Aid, Ponzi-like Federal Reserve bailout, where it was nothing more than we gave the banks, money on paper, and they turned around and bought our treasuries, that, and sending 10 senior staff members over to China over the past, 6 months, I think we have a real problem with our monetary system, and that it completely has to be reset, and that this swine flu is the false flag to be ready for martial law in the event of a economic currency reset. No,
that's it. They're going to use it, whether they just fearmonger and it isn't deadly. But if they need to, they'll release some bioweapon that does kill a bunch of people. If they need that to pose as saviors and put troops on the streets. I mean, they're doing it.
Well, I think, too, that everyone's got to keep in mind that you've got the baby boomers growing up. You've got all these massive retirement programs that can't be funded because the big companies have stolen all their retirees. You've got the situation where what do you do with an angry population that knows you've screwed them, that now you're going to try and kill them, that you're destroying their family?